At 5:28 hours Central European Time, a hypersonic glide vehicle descends through 60 kilometers altitude over eastern Poland. Traveling at approximately Mach 8, its radar cross-section is minimal. Its trajectory irregular. Early warning satellites register the infrared bloom 90 seconds earlier. By the time ground-based radars near Eurasian confirm track continuity, projected impact is 40 seconds away. Inside NATO's Combined Air Operations Center in Unum, the ballistic missile defense cell shifts from monitoring to execution. The target is a logistics hub supporting forward-deployed forces. Near the alliance's eastern flank, impact radius modeling predicts runway denial and secondary detonations from stored fuel if the glide vehicle penetrates. To Patriot PAC-3 MSE batteries positioned 18 kilometers west of the projected impact point. Receive automated engagement cues. Engagement window, 28 seconds. Probability of kill per interceptor against a maneuvering hypersonic target is assessed below. 0.35. Doctrine requires ripple fire. At 5:29 hours, for interceptors launch in rapid succession, accelerating beyond Mach 4. Their active seekers attempt terminal guidance corrections. One interceptor misses by 15 meters. The second detonates close enough to fragment the glide body, deflecting it off course. Debris impacts open farmland 9 kilometers from the intended logistics hub. The base remains operational. The first strike fails to achieve strategic paralysis. Within minutes, NATO's Article 5 consultation mechanism activates. Political authorization compresses into operational directives. Supreme Allied Commander Europe issues an execute order for graduated response. But NATO's war plan does not begin with immediate mass retaliation. It begins with stabilization. At 5:40 hours, E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft orbiting over Prague expand surveillance sectors eastward. Airspace over Poland, the Baltic states, and eastern Germany transitions to full combat air patrol coverage. F-35A Lightning II, Eurofighter Typhoon, and Rafale squadrons scramble from dispersed bases. Speed, 0.9 Mach. Altitude, 30 to 1,000 feet. Armament, AIM-1 DMROM missiles with a range exceeding 160 kilometers. Radar operators across NATO's integrated air and missile defense system monitor for follow-on launches. The initial hypersonic strike could represent probing fire testing response times and engagement probabilities before a larger salvo. At 5:55 hours, cyber intrusion attempts surge against military logistics networks in Brussels and Minsk. Home to NATO's strategic command structures, firewalls isolate segments. Data latency increases, but command continuity holds. The second phase begins at sea. In the Baltic Sea, a Arleberg-class destroyer operating 70 nautical miles east of Stockholm shifts from ballistic missile defense posture to offensive strike readiness. Its vertical launch system carries SM-3 interceptors, SM-6 dual-role missiles, and Tomahawk Block V cruise missiles. Beneath the surface, Allied submarines adjust to launch positions against pre-designated anti-access targets. NATO's dilemma is immediate and severe. A full retaliatory strike into adversary territory risks uncontrollable escalation, potentially crossing nuclear thresholds. A limited response risks emboldening further aggression. The alliance must calibrate force, precisely strong enough to deter, restrained enough to contain. At 6:12 hours, intelligence confirms that the initial hypersonic strike originated from a mobile launcher within a heavily defended enclave, supported by layered air defenses, including S-400 systems and short-range Panzer units. Range to NATO forward bases, under 600 kilometers. Neutralizing that launcher requires penetrating overlapping missile engagement zones extending to 150 to 380 kilometers. At 6:25 hours, NATO initiates suppression of enemy air defenses for F-35's approach from the northwest at 28,000 feet, remaining outside the 400-kilometer detection envelope until final approach. There, an APG-81 radars operate in low probability of intercept mode. Each aircraft carries to AGM-88 GARG-MR anti-radiation missiles internally. Range, approximately 300 kilometers. Simultaneously, electronic warfare aircraft begin narrowband jamming against specific fire control frequencies. The objective is not to blind the network entirely, but to induce hesitation. Inside the adversary's air defense command post, operators detect intermittent jamming. Radar confidence levels degrade from 90% to 62%. If they activate additional illumination radars, they risk anti-radiation targeting. If they remain passive, they lose track continuity. They choose activation. At 6:33 hours, to AARG-MR missiles launch from 240 kilometers away. Speed, Mach to plus. Time to target, under 4 minutes. One missile is intercepted by an S-400 interceptor, costing roughly $1 million. The second penetrates and destroys a 9-6E fire control radar vehicle. A coverage gap opens 35 kilometers wide. NATO aircraft exploited immediately. Additional JASSM cruise missiles are launched from standoff distances, targeting mobile launcher storage depots and command vehicles. The aim is degradation, not devastation, but every offensive move forces a defensive reallocation. To protect mobile launchers, adversary commanders redeploy short-range systems away from coastal defense sites. That shift exposes maritime approaches. At 6:50 hours, a NATO submarine launches Tomahawk missiles against coastal anti-ship batteries near Kaliningrad. Time to impact, 22 minutes. Sea skimming at 30 meters altitude. The missiles exploit radar shadow created by terrain and electronic interference. Meanwhile, NATO ground forces initiate dispersal procedures. Mechanized brigades relocate every 4 hours, reducing vulnerability to follow-on missile strikes. Convoys move at 60 kilometers per hour, maintaining 500-meter spacing to limit blast overlap. The second hypersonic launch occurs at 7:15 hours. Target projection indicates a NATO air base near Poznań. Early warning satellites detect the plume. An Aegis-equipped destroyer in the Baltic launches an SM-6 missile at Mach 3.5, climbing to intercept altitude. The intercept occurs at 48 kilometers altitude. The glide vehicle fragments. Debris falls into the sea. The Alliance's layered defense space-based detection, sea-based interceptors. Land-based Patriots demonstrates redundancy. But interceptor inventories are finite. Each SM-6 costs several $1 million. Reloading vertical launch cells at sea requires port access and hours of vulnerability. NATO planners recognize the risk of depletion. The war plan now shifts toward reducing launch capacity rather than merely intercepting projectiles. At 7:40 hours, B-2 Spirit bombers flying from forward staging locations approach release point 600 kilometers from hostile territory. Payload, GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, targeting hardened underground missile storage facilities. Release altitude, 40,000 feet. The bomb's penetration capability exceeds 60 meters of Earth. Before detonation, adversary radar coverage remains degraded but not eliminated. Too long range. Interceptors are fired. Neither achieves lock due to stealth profile and electronic masking. Penetrators impact within minutes. Seismic signatures confirm structural compromise of underground bunkers. The initial hypersonic strike is now revealed as a strategic gambit to fracture alliance unity through shock and rapid escalation. NATO's response instead demonstrates cohesion and layered integration. By 8:30 hours, air superiority over contested airspace remains contested but manageable. More than 120 NATO aircraft are airborne across the eastern flank. Tanker aircraft orbit west of the threat, en volo, sustaining sortie rates. Each refueling cycle extends patrol time by approximately 90 minutes. Cyber operations intensify. NATO disrupts satellite navigation signals supporting adversary missile guidance, forcing reliance on inertial systems. Accuracy declines, with circular error probabilities expanding from 5 meters to over 30 meters. At sea, maritime patrol aircraft coordinate with surface combatants to track submarine movements. Anti-submarine warfare helicopters deploy sonobuoys, forming detection grids 10 nautical miles apart. Every decision creates trade-offs. Concentrating air power east reduces reserves in southern Europe. Deploying naval assets north weakens Mediterranean coverage. Interceptor expenditure reduces future defensive depth. But the alliance operates on collective mass. 31 nations synchronize logistics, fuel, ammunition, and airlift. C-17 and A400M transport aircraft begin moving reinforcements within hours, landing every 12 minutes at designated hubs. By midday, adversary missile launches slow. Mobile units relocate deeper inland, extending range but reducing responsiveness. Air defense networks remain partially degraded. Coastal anti-ship systems have suffered precision strikes. NATO halts short of deep strategic targets. Nuclear forces on both sides remain untouched, signaling controlled conventional engagement. The opening 12 hours reveal the doctrine clearly: defend immediately, suppress selectively. Degrade launch capacity, preserve escalation dominance. A hypersonic weapon at 5:28 hours was not the beginning of total war. It was a test of alliance cohesion and response time. NATO's war plan prioritizes layered defense and synchronized counterforce operations across air, land, sea, cyber, and space domains. It seeks not annihilation, but denial of momentum, denial of initiative. By 18 o'clock hours, the battle space stabilizes. Interceptor inventories are replenished from preposition stocks. Air patrol rotations continue without interruption. Political leadership communicates unified resolve. The first strike failed to fracture the alliance. Instead, It triggered a coordinated response designed long before the missile left its launcher. Hardened command centers from Washington, D.C. to London. Updated maps display revised engagement envelopes. Losses are assessed. Ammunition counts recalculated. Strategic thresholds remain uncrossed. The conflict remains conventional but balanced on calculation. NATO's response demonstrates that modern war at scale is decided not only by speed or firepower, but by integration, redundancy, and timing. The first hypersonic arc across Polish skies was meant to shock. Instead, it activated a machine built for exactly that moment. The calculation had changed.